I'd like to call the meeting of the Reno Planning Commission to order. Would you please rise and join me in the Pledge of Allegiance? Can we have roll call, please?
Dennis Romeo.
Here.
Jason Woosley is absent. Doug Kaufman.
Here.
Buzz Harris is absent. Kimberly Locke. Here. Dagny Stapleton. Here. And Kevin Weisky.
Here.
Thank you. Item 3 is public comment. This item is for either general public comment or for public comment on an action item. If commenting on an action item, please place the agenda item number on the request to speak form. Do we have any, Michelle, that are not?
No, we do not.
We do not. Item 4, the agenda, approval of the minutes of the September 24th, 2012 special meeting.
So moved.
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the approval of the minutes signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Do we have anyone recusing or abstaining?
Commissioner Kaufman, I abstain.
Kimberly Locke abstains.
Could you explain why you're abstaining, just so that it's clear?
I wanted to. I was absent.
I wasn't a commissioner yet.
Okay.
It's going to be a long night, I can see.
Okay, approval of the minutes for the October 17th, 2012 special meeting, and I understand we have a correction on those minutes. Commissioner Stapleton?
I do. I have a comment on those minutes. I don't know if anybody else saw this, but at the very end on page 5, second to last paragraph, when it's talking about the direction that we gave to staff on the item 14C.
Wait,
that-
we're doing the regular minutes, or the special meeting minutes, not the workshop.
Yeah, this is October 17th meeting?
October
We're
7th.
doing the special meeting first, and then the workshop.
Oh, gotcha. Okay.
Yeah, there's 2 sets of minutes for that.
So on the special meeting, Mr. Chairman, Commissioner Weisky will make a motion to approve.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any
Wait a minute.
opposed? Any abstaining?
If you are recused, you can't second, you can't participate. Are we doing
No,
now
he
the
was-
17th?
He was there in October.
Okay, you're there in October. Okay, good enough.
Commissioner Locke abstains, absent.
So it would be 4 in favor, 1 abstain. Now, October 17th, 2012 workshop.
Okay.
Commissioner
So
Stapleton.
page 5, second to the last paragraph. We had a long discussion about this item, and it's summarized in just a couple sentences, which is fine. I just am not sure that this was the outcome that happened in that meeting. We had a long discussion about this, and I think decided to directed staff to do something differently, but I'm wondering if you can go back and review that, because I don't think that this is the correct outcome. This is the last 2 sentences of the second to the last paragraph. It was a pretty complex and long discussion.
Okay, thank you.
Well,
Could you read what you think is not?
So, the last sentence says, discussion was heard to require a site plan review for new development within the 4th Street and Virginia Street TODs for the language in item 14C to only apply to small lots to maintain the integrity of the standards and the vision for the TODs. I remember that was something that most of the commission wasn't comfortable with, and that staff was going to bring it back much differently. This says that she was going to bring it back just to apply to small lots, and that was not how I remembered it. Do any of the other commissioners remember it differently? I don't know if we can have a discussion on this. I don't think this is correct, so.
Okay, these were sent out, so I'll have to listen to the tape again. Somebody else did.
Okay, I'm sorry to do that. It
No,
was just,
that's fine.
it was a long discussion. I think this is one of the more important items that we talked about
Okay.
around this, so.
All right.
Well, can those be reviewed and brought up at the next meeting for final approval?
Sure.
Can we do that?
Yeah.
Thank you,
Do
Michelle.
we need a motion to continue the approval, or
Yes, please.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Weisky?
I'd like to make a motion to continue the meeting minutes from October 17th, the approval of them until next month after a further review.
Okay, we have a motion. Do we have a second?
I'll second that motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Can I
Any
say
opposed?
ayes if I wasn't there?
No, you would have to abstain.
Abstain? Okay.
Right, if you weren't
Can-
present, then you would
Then I
abstain
can't
again.
even talk about it. Okay, Commissioner Locke abstains.
Okay, so we're 4 in favor and 1 abstaining. We got that sorted out now? Okay, item 5, City Council Liaison Report. I see none. Item 6, Unfinished Business Public Hearings. LDC 13-00026, Walla 2 Variance Condition Amendments. Would the representative or the applicant please step forward, identify themselves?
Good evening, Mr. Chairman, members of the commission. For the record, Garrett Gordon with the law firm of Lewis and Roca, representing the applicant. I submitted a letter requesting a second continuance until January 2nd. We've been working with the neighbors. I had another productive meeting with staff this week, and I think we're getting pretty close to a global compromise. My letter requested, again, a 30-day continuance. And speaking with the neighbors tonight, the neighbor adjacent to us is not available on January 2nd, so I'd like to request that this be moved till February 6th to accommodate the neighbor's schedule so we can be here and testify and participate in the hearing.
Okay. Does the city have any objections to that?
Very close, senior planner, no, we do not. We
Okay.
do know that a couple of the adjacent neighbors can't make the meeting, so moving it to February seems agreeable to all the parties.
Okay. Before we take a motion to do this, Gary Kasdan, are you there? Yes. Will you be available in February, or was this done because you can't make the January meeting? You'll be available. Would you like to save your time for the February meeting? Would you like to save your time for the February meeting? Okay, thank you. And we'll entertain a motion to continue this to the February Planning Commission meeting.
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Kaufman.
I make a motion to postpone this LDC 13-00026 to the February 6th meeting.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second by Commissioner Locke. All in favor signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed? Let the record show the motion carries unanimously. Thank you. Happy holidays to you. Item 7, public hearings. Number 1, LDC 13-00031, North Valley Shopping Center sign. Will the applicant or the applicant's representative please step forward? You have 15 minutes.
Good afternoon. My name's Travis Landis. I work for Julie Sign Shop Incorporated. We are electrical sign contractors in the area, and I was contracted through Gabrielson and Company, which is the owners of North Valley Shopping Center, to submit a request for special use permit to allow the increase of the regulated 35-foot proposed sign to a 65-foot sign. The main reasons for this increase is, if you could see that, the main reasons for this increase is basically grade variation of where this sign would be placed, where the sign is actually going to be placed on the property to where it would be seen by the passerby on the freeway is 38 feet. So if we were to stick with the 35-foot proposed or allowed restriction, this sign would be very hard to see. And what we're trying to do is stimulate more flow to knowing what's in this plaza If you're not familiar with this plaza, this is where the old Scolari's was on North Valleys. And with Walmart coming into the area, it kind of bumped Scolari's out of there because of pricing. And if you don't know, with Walmart, there's a handful of companies that kind of follow along with Walmart. And Big Lots and Grocery Outlet Bargain Market are two of those companies that kind of piggyback off of Walmart to, suit the clientele in that area. So basically, with this increase, what we're trying to do is just advertise who's in this plaza. We're trying to prevent this plaza from becoming dead and people moving out just because customers don't know who and what's in there with their main anchor tenant leaving. The second part of this SUP is to allow the sign to sit 50 feet off of the property line where regulated it's normally 100 feet. And the reason for this is a big open lot, and we're trying to place this sign where future development comes in, buildings are being built. This sign's not going to sit in the middle of this plaza with a bunch of buildings around it. So basically, it's just to increase visibility and promote these businesses within the property.
Thank you. Who's handling this for the city? Vern, is that you?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. Staff, when this came in, had initial concerns about the overall height. Generally, that is not something we are in support of because of visibility and those sorts of things, but this particular site is located 30 feet or so below the grade of the freeway, and our understanding is the purpose of the sign is to get visibility for the center for people driving up and down the freeway, not necessarily just provide visibility for the off-ramp patrons. So in looking at the area and the grades of the site as compared to the freeway, and where you could see the sign from as you were going up and down the freeway, we felt that in this particular instance that the increased height was warranted because it would put the bottom of the sign roughly a little bit below the grade of the freeway and provide the visibility that you would get if you were at grade. For a street at grade, you would get roughly the same amount of sign visibilities if it was a 35-foot sign at grade. So another instance that this could be compared to is the Shell station at Red Rock. They got a sign increase size and height basically for similar reasons. They're way off the freeway, and it provided better visibility for the business based on the grade differences. So that staff is supporting the request as presented. We received no phone calls, no emails, no public contact at all on this particular project. It was reviewed by the North Valleys NAB, and it was generally supported by the NAB. I think there were a couple of comments that the sign might be a little bit too tall, and they didn't want it to set a precedent, which precedents are not set case by case. Projects are looked at case by case, not because we did it in the past. It's based on the situation. So that's how we looked at it. Be happy to answer any questions at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak on this item? Now is your opportunity. Hearing and seeing none, I'll close the public hearing portion, bring it back to the commissioners. Are there any disclosures on this item? None. Okay, we'll start with questions. Let's start on the other end. Commissioner Locke, any questions?
I have a question about just the material that the sign is made out of and the lighting. If you can tell me a little bit about how bright it will be and what it's going to look like, just material-wise.
Material-wise, we basically use structural steel to use as far as the backbone of this sign. All material will be basically aluminum and acrylic. Some of it might be faux painted to represent wood, but we're trying not to use any type of wood on any signs that we build just because it does have a tendency to break down in the area. As far as lighting goes, with the artwork that you see in front of you, the letters themselves will be the only parts that light. The sign structure itself isn't going to light. It's just going to be kind of a clean, crisp channel letter look, which is very similar to what you see in an average shopping center where just the sign itself, just the logo itself is lighting. So it's not going to be this big monstrosity of light that's just blaring as people drive by. But the main type of material is going to be steel, aluminum, acrylic, and stone, and concrete for the footings themselves.
Thank you.
Commissioner Kaufman?
So there's no electronic signing? So no flashing, no,
Repetitive motion, no animated
Yeah.
sign at all.
Okay.
No. Everything's going to be utilized low volt LEDs, so it's not going to consume a lot of power as well. But
thank you.
Commissioner Stapleton? Nothing? Commissioner Weisky?
For the applicant, please, when you say LED lighting, that's LED backlit?
exactly.
Okay. Would the owner have any problems with us conditioning it that that's the only type of sign to ever be allowed so that they don't upgrade it to an LED screen type of a board in the future?
That makes sense, and the owner has no appeal against that. If you were a written statement as that, he would accept that.
Okay, all right. I've been out to the site several times, and this afternoon, again, was out to the site, and I'm looking at your submission package with a map like this, and you had it up on the monitor earlier, if you would put that up for viewing. This map is obviously not to scale because the on-ramp is much farther southeast than what is shown there. And the reason I'm asking that is because I'm trying to figure out what your elevations are. You've said 38 feet plus or minus to the freeway. We've heard staff say it's 30 feet plus or minus. That's a difference of 25 to 30% in elevation change. This drawing doesn't show any elevations on it. Can you be more specific with elevations of what you're trying to accomplish and where the elevations are that you're trying to reach?
Yes, I will. So basically, I know this is my first site map to show elevation gain. Normally, we just have to do a perspective drawing for signs. So these green stars basically represent, and this is off the city GIS site. These green stars represent the freeway, which is our target audience that will be passing by north to south. And that elevation sits at 5,128 feet, where the sign itself sits down onto the property at 5,090 feet. And the sign itself is represented on this location right there. And with it not being to scale, basically I pulled that off the city website, so I don't have the overall dimension to scale, but the freeway should sit, because that is off the GIS site.
So what you're saying then is where your signage is proposed and the elevation directly across from it is 38 feet difference.
Correct.
How does that compare to the overhead high-energy poles sitting between you and the freeway?
It's going to sit exactly 50 feet away from those high-energy poles. That power line sits right on property line. So with that high energy, I don't have the exact studies, but I'm not sure exactly how far power could travel to a main structure. But seeing that it's 50 feet away, it's almost double the height of
How tall are those power poles?
65 feet to the bottom line
Okay.
at freeway grade.
So your sign's going to be as high as the bottom of the power lines on those poles.
It's going to be approximately it's going to sit roughly between 15 and 25 feet lower due to grade variation. Those power lines sit at grade on freeway,
Okay?
and the lowest power line is 65 feet from there, which our sign will be sitting down on grade at 65 feet. So it'll be 50 feet away minus 20 plus feet lower than the lowest active power line.
Okay.
How they built that parcel, and that's kind of the reason, is there's like an embankment that goes up to support the footings of that power line. And whoever did that development in the past just carved out that hillside and kind of flattened it out, or whoever owned the property. And that's why those power lines look so high up there. And the reason the sign would be, away from the power lines themselves and sit lower is just due to that initial grade variation.
Okay, so, all right, that gives me, now I've got an idea in my mind visually of where you're going to be at with your sign. If the freeway elevation is 38 feet from your grade to the roadway, and the uppermost tier of your signage is 37 feet, then half of your sign is not going to be seen by traffic at a given point that you're trying to reach, correct?
At certain points of the freeway, yes. This freeway, I don't know if you're probably familiar with the area if you've been out there, how it kind of goes up and down.
Right.
So at its lowest point, you'll be able to see the three main anchor tenants that'll be in the plaza. And as you're coming down, repetitive motion, you'll be able to view pretty much the whole 2/3 of the top of this sign.
Okay, so then why doesn't it work if it's at 35 feet?
Because-
Repetitive motion, you're going to be able to see the same signs that are placed in the lower half of your signage.
Well, the reason just for it is to have that initial contact of consistently seeing who's in this plaza. If we're proposing the 35 foot, as I said, I would suggest maybe 20–30% of the people are going to notice the sign if they're looking down and away from the freeway. The reason we're proposing this is so that you have a consistent eye level viewability of who is in the plaza. And really what we're trying to target is that repetitive motion of people passing by. You know, there's studies with signs where people don't necessarily know what type of business it is, but they'll see the names consistently and they'll refer people to go check out the business just because of that consistent repetitive nature. So what we're trying to do is just target that repetitive nature of all those residents that live out in the North Valleys and really just drive people into that area. So the easier it is to read, the less of the distraction to look away from the sign itself, we feel would be better for the property itself to
Okay,
establish those businesses.
thank you. Question for staff? Vern, if you would, please refresh my memory on the difference between monument signage and building signage as far as allowed square footage. We have two different ordinances, don't we?
Glenn Close, Senior Planner. In this zone, you get 1 square foot of wall sign area for every square foot of business frontage. So basically most of these buildings have business frontage on all 4 sides, but you can only use the two largest sides. So if you have a building with 100 foot of frontage and 50 feet on the side, you can only do 150 square feet. You can put it on all 4 sides, but you can only do 150 square feet. For freestanding signs, based on the size of the center, they can have up to 500 square feet of total freestanding sign area on the monuments or signs like this. So at this point, they have about 300 square feet of sign area, and they have about 190, I'm remembering the numbers, but roughly about 190, 200 square feet less left. And this particular sign based on the way they were because you can just calculate the area of the letters versus length times width on a can type sign. So basically they have about roughly 190, 200 square feet left that they could put on the sign based on existing signage. So basically they get 500 square feet and one sign per street frontage with the ability to add one more if they have more than 10 acres. So basically the square footage proposed and the number of signs they have are within the code requirements based on what they have existing and what they're proposing as far as freestanding.
Okay. And is there only two properties here? There's the property that McDonald's sits on, and then the rest of the center is one single property?
I believe so. Yes. But we are considering McDonald's to be part of the center because it's functionally part of the center, whether it's on a separate property or not. If you look at any shopping center in town, it might have been approved as one parcel, but lots of times they subdivide the centers, so they get approved as one center or they function as one center even though there are several different properties. So it was our determination that McDonald's is part of the center and they would be subject to the freestanding sign limits of the center.
So if we increase this sign to 65 feet, does that mean then that McDonald's, the bank, and the auto parts store who have freestanding signs could then increase their signs to 65 feet?
No, they would have to come in for a special use permit and also show that they're not exceeding the square footage limitations for the site.
Okay, but if they don't change their size, their sign size, then they just want to increase them, it would just be a special use permit?
To increase the height, correct. And,
Okay.
and another thing that we discussed with the applicant was that initially we went, well, McDonald's is a separate thing, so they could come in and ask for whatever freestanding signs allowed based on their parcel size, and then we kind of looked at it again and went, well, really functionally this is one center, so all their sign area is, considered as part of the center. And the idea was that instead of doing another freestanding sign that's 65 feet tall for one business, why not have this one sign that could provide the visibility from the freeway for all the businesses that wanted to go onto this sign. So the idea was to allow the visibility that way versus everybody trying to put up their own sign. But again, they're only limited to a maximum of 4 freestanding signs in the center. And the McDonald's square footage is included in the existing square footage, that 301 or 2 or whatever it is. So we thought it was a more efficient way to do it and also reduce the amount of freestanding signs and also get the visibility off the freeway. And of course, the increased height is based on, we calculated that the grade difference roughly was about 30 feet. You got 5090 is the base of the sign, and right in this area here it's 5130. It might go up a little bit higher, but basically once you get over the crest of the overpass, it goes down the hill and you're not going to see the sign from there anyway. So basically you're seeing the sign in roughly this area here, and then coming from the south, you would see it, it would be more visible going north on the freeway than it would, for a longer period.
Okay, thank you.
Welcome.
Mr. Chairman, I have no further questions at this time.
Okay. Anyone else have questions? Comments? Motion?
Mr. Chairman, before a motion, I'd like to make a comment. And there's a couple of things that I have a hard time with this proposal. One is the height of it. I understand what's trying to be accomplished by raising the sign up. I don't believe the 65 feet is needed to attract attention from those driving up from the south from town heading north on 395. That shopping's been there longer than most of those houses have been out there. That was the first shopping center that was out there. And although new businesses are going in, it's an opportunity to advertise for them, and it's a nice-looking monument sign, but at 65 feet, it's a monster. and I have an issue with that at that point, especially when you're only going to see, half of it is below the 35 feet, which is our sign standards now. The other problem that I have is that staff has asked for landscaping around the bottom of this, and we haven't seen a landscaping plan. We don't know what's going on around it, although it's something that will be addressed, I guess, at staff level, by staff when a permit is submitted. But, for a complete application, we should have had that. And we've talked about this in the past, that these are the types of things that we want to see, so that when we make a decision, we're making one based off of all the information available. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weisky. Any other comments? I just have one quick comment. If there is a motion on this, I like the idea that you had, Commissioner Weisky, about the LED, the limiting the lighting as an additional condition. So, with that, we'll entertain a motion. Anyone? Commissioner Locke?
I'd like to
Please.
make a motion.
Okay.
In reference to case LDC 13-00031, North Valley Shopping Center sign, based on compliance with the applicable findings, specifically E, G, and H, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions.
Would you also add the condition that Commissioner Weisky indicated in our discussions regarding the lighting?
Yes. Do we want to be specific about
Could you
that?
Commissioner Locke, my condition, or my recommendation for a condition would be that the monument sign contain only backlit signage, no other signage to be approved.
Okay. And do we want to say there's a condition with the landscaping as well?
It's
That's
already in
It's
there.
already a condition.
Yeah.
It's already addressed.
Okay.
It was just a point of concern I had that I
Okay.
was publicly airing.
Okay.
So this would be condition 7 added to it. So we have a motion. Vern?
A little clarification. I believe in your discussion about you wanted to limit it to LED backlighting with no animated or flashing. Do you want that as part of that? Because that's what you had indicated.
Yes, Vern.
Okay, so we'll,
Is that part, Vern, is that part also of our code right now, that they would have to come before us if they wanted to do that?
for what?
Add the graphics or anything in this?
No, actually, if the sign area is within the square footage limitations, they could theoretically put that on there. So if you don't want them to have that, you can specifically condition it.
Okay,
That way,
yeah.
the way it was represented was low-impact lighting, LED, backlit sort of thing. That would be condition number 1. But if you want to make that more specific, because, in the future, someone could go, well, it really doesn't say I can't do this. So if you want to make that clear, that would be the way to do it, would be to specifically put it in a condition.
Thank you, Vern. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Kaufman, I'll second the motion.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Aye. Nay.
Let the record show the vote is 4-1 in favor.
Mr.
luck.
Chairman, my nay vote was because I cannot make finding E.
Finding E. So the record is 4-1 in favor. Good luck with your project. Item 2, LDC 13-00032, The Manor. Will the applicant or the applicant's representative please step forward? You have 15 minutes.
Good evening. How are you guys doing? My name is Bernard Baylock. I'm seeking a special use permit for the manor at 324 Kitsky Lane. And we're given recommended conditions, most of which we have no problems fulfilling, except one, condition number 13, I believe it was. You guys were asking for a sound engineer to come in to do an acoustical study, and we feel it's like an unnecessary cost, being that until very recently there was a club across the street, there's a club next door, and the neighborhood is used to any sound that may be emitted from those buildings. And another reason you guys asked for it was because of the apartments above the building, all of which there are none above the dance floor, and the one above the bar is currently being occupied by one of our employees and remains to be there for quite some time. And we just feel it's an unnecessary cost. And we're asking for that one to be removed.
Okay. Thank you. Vern, are you taking this one? Nathan? We may have questions for you later, don't?
Of course.
Hi. Good evening, Commissioners. Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. As the applicant indicated, this is a request for a bar and a nightclub operation at 324 Kitski Lane. As the conditions indicate, staff's recommendations is subject to numerous site improvements. As Mr. Baylock indicated, staff did recommend condition 13. That's related to two specific findings. One, consistency with the master plan. Of specific concern was Master Plan Policy CD6, which says that the hours of operation and general activity level of development should be sensitive to surrounding land uses, particularly residential uses. Business with 24-hour operations are generally discouraged adjacent to residential uses, except being some public facilities, radio stations, or other uses with limited activity. Additionally, a special use permit finding of concern to staff was special use permit finding F, which says that the project does not create adverse environmental impacts such as smoke, noise, glare, dust, vibrations, fumes, pollutions, or odors which would be detrimental to or constitute a nuisance to area properties. In the past, planning commissions may be aware, nightclub operations, just by the virtue of the business, can without proper mitigation, create noise concerns, disturbance concerns for areas surrounding the properties, even when they make their best efforts without professional mitigation. The opening and closing of doors can release loud music, bass, can extend considerably. When we initially met with the applicants, we weren't aware that there were 6 units attached to the property, 6 residential units. We wouldn't have conditioned this otherwise. It's in a large industrial and commercial, auto-oriented commercial area. But given the fact that there are 6 residential apartments contiguous to the proposed nightclub and bar, staff is recommending that condition.
Thank you, Nathan. This is if we have questions, we'll call you. Okay. This is a public hearing. Does anyone in chambers have anything to comment on this? Now's your opportunity. Seeing and hearing none, I'll close the public comment portion. Do we have any disclosures on this item? Commissioner Wieski? None. Commissioner Stapleton?
I received an email.
Commissioner Locke?
I received an email as well.
Commissioner Kaufman?
So did you.
And I also received email.
Yeah,
Mr. Chairman, yes, I did receive an email this afternoon from, might have been a resident, I don't know, no address was given.
No, and as have I. Okay. We'll bring it back to the board for questions. Kevin, would you like to start off here?
Yeah, this is a question for the applicant. Your residents that you have up there now, are you going to maintain those as residents? And how many are occupied currently?
My name's Roger Baylock. I'm his father. I own half the building here with a partner. The 6 apartments that are above are very, very much incidental. It's not a very. We bought the building in 2007, and it's a very transient crowd up there. In fact, we don't have anyone that's been in there more than a year at this point. I'm looking forward to the club coming in because actually I have 2 of the units rented to future employees of the place. I'm looking for some stability in the tenancy upstairs. This space had been empty ever since I bought the place in 2007, as you're well aware. Kitsky Lane has suffered major turn down in this downturn in our economy, and we have not been able to rent this place for 5 years. I've owned this building, and we're looking forward to bringing a club, having some stable rents, and having some stable tenants upstairs. I think this is going to add to the building, not detract from the building.
Okay, thank you. Staff, Nathan? Nathan, before I ask the question, I'm going to apologize to you first because I just thought of this now, and I normally would have called you earlier and let you prep for this one, but the nightclub that sits next door to the south of this property, were they required to do a sound study as part of their special use permit? Because I think they did require a special use permit for their hours of operation.
Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. That was indicated in the staff report when we did the initial research, because these applicants came in clearly requesting a nightclub application. We looked at, Tronics, which is directly to the south. Tronics business license indicates that they are a bar with an accessory cabaret. They did not indicate on their application that they were operating as a nightclub. In fact, they had crossed out on their initial application dancing and music. They strictly limited themselves to a bar. We notified code enforcement and business license of that if they wanted to investigate that. So Tronics Nightclub does not have a special use permit to operate as a nightclub. That's why we refer to it in the staff report as a bar, because that's what they're licensed to do.
Okay. Do we have the same requirement for a bar adjacent to residential as far as sound engineering?
At that time that they came in for their business license, they were in an industrial zoning district. Bars are allowed in an industrial zoning district by right, so there's no discretionary discretionary review other than basic code standards of nuisance.
Okay. That's all the questions I have for right now, Mr. Chairman. I may come back.
Commissioner Stapleton?
Yeah, I have a few questions, and maybe first of all for Nathan, or for the applicant, whoever is appropriate. I have a question about the lighting plan in the parking lot. Condition 11 says that the proprietor shall ensure that the parking lot is lit to current code standards, and I think that also addressed the police department's concerns with, that's their standard. They go and look for crime, and they request certain things, and they requested that you guys have a certain standard of lighting. So, Nathan, what are they required to have? And then maybe the applicant can talk about what you guys are planning on doing.
Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner. I'll let the applicant follow up if he'd like to, but there's basic standards for parking lot lighting within code. It's based on a certain measurable amount of foot candles from the lights that are in place there. So long as they're operational, the parking lot's very small. The lights are very big and numerous on the building. It appears that it would be sufficient to more than adequately cover the parking lot lighting needs.
Okay, and around the back of the building, I mean, was that a concern also for the police, having it being a club that, all sides are sort of well lit?
The
rear, if it's going to be a 24-hour operation?
On both sides, and so
Okay.
it's 324, and I believe 320 is the vacant piece next to that. But the parking lot would include both of those
Okay.
units, and there appears to be sufficient lighting that would cover that. Fencing separates the remainder of the building, so lighting would not be an issue. in my
Okay, so
opinion.
those folks, so to get behind the building, you'd have to go out of the parking lot and down the street?
Correct.
Okay. Next question, was this taken to the NAB? I didn't see comments at the end.
We attended a NAB meeting, but unfortunately, they canceled when we asked them to visit us. It was in September 27th. We asked that we be allowed to be there, and we weren't notified it was canceled, but we were there.
Okay. Were you guys on the agenda?
We asked to be put on.
They were asked to be put on the NAB, but that particular meeting was canceled.
Okay.
The application was forwarded to all the NAB members during the distribution. We received no comments
Okay.
regarding the matter.
Okay, thank you. And then my last question has to do with the adjacent residential. So I drove down there and looked at it this morning, and it's really adjacent. It's the same building, so that the units are essentially, they're not next door, they are in the same building with, so there's, I'm imagining just the walls of the units is the only thing that separates the dance club part and the residential spaces where you've got your tenants.
Nathan Gilbert, Associate Planner, that's the way it is laid out.
So what separates those residential units? Is it basically, is there just a wall?
The units are located on above the left side, above basically 300 Kiski, the left side of the building. Where, if you look at your pictures there in the report, this club is located on the far right-hand side next to Tronics Club, and that part of the building is simply a one-story building with nothing above it. The apartments are located above the tire shop. The units on, it's a corner building that they're above Lewis Street. You'll see there, and there's a stairway in the back. They're in the back of the location. This is the front right-hand corner of the property. There's where the dance hall, the music's going to be. There is nothing above that room. Where the room where the bar is actually located, there is one apartment located above that, and right now there's a tenant that's basically Jay here that's occupying that unit here and stuff. So,
Okay.
and like I say, this it's a very transient building. What we're trying to do is establish the commercial, get set commercial in there. We have a tire shop around on Lewis Street, and we're trying to get the commercial rented out, and because right now it's it's mostly studio apartments, and it's a very transient deal out there, and it doesn't support the building. What I need is constant commercial tenants in there.
But you're still intending to maintain the residential use?
Oh yeah. We will maintain the apartments, but like I say, I'm looking as just like one of the tire shop. The guy that owns the tire shop lives in one of the apartments above. I'm trying to convert the building, the residential, to more use by the commercial spaces down below.
But it's adjacent, it's still within the same structure?
Yes.
The units? Okay.
Yes, it is in the same structure. It's all one building. But what it was, this building originally was built in 1964, and it was added on 3 times. So there's different phases of the building that were built at different times.
Okay.
Okay.
Thank you. I think that's all the questions I have for now.
Thank you. Commissioner Locke, any questions? None? Commissioner Kaufman, none? And I have none also. I'm very familiar with this property and the history of it. Commissioner Weisky, any further questions?
I have some comments or discussion before we make a motion, unless we want to make a motion and then have
Okay,
discussion.
well, let's have the discussion before, and let's see what we can work out.
Okay. I have a couple issues with being able to make the findings on this. Just specifically, we've got 3 findings that we're required to make in order to approve the special use permit. It has to be compatible with the surrounding land uses, conformance with the master plan, which also says that, well, going back to A, it has to be compatible with existing surrounding land uses, so residential adjacent to a 24-hour nightclub. In my mind, I mean, there's just no way that I can argue how that's a compatible use, despite the the fact that you might want to provide some mitigation there, and even one of the ones that the city asked you to do, you aren't willing to do, which is provide a sound study for those folks. And then number 2, finding B, the project is in substantial conformance with the master plan, and the master plan says that businesses with 24-hour operations are generally discouraged adjacent to residential. So that's another, that's in the code that we have to abide by, that we're making this decision on, and that's the same issue, that the residential is essentially in the same building. And then finding F, the project does not create adverse environmental impacts, including noise and vibrations. And mean, that's essentially why we're here. You know, that's what this body does, is try to make sure that when people want to do development and do a certain land use, that it's not impacting other uses in a negative way. Vibrations and noise are going to impact another use. Now, I understand it's all in the same building, so, I mean, you know, so it's up to you. You've got these two conflicting uses that you guys own in this building, but, or that you want, and in my mind, it's just not compatible. And, you know, what we're asked to do is to make that decision, you know, to protect folks from, you know, these negative externalities, they call them, of noise and, you know, things that might affect residential property negatively. And I just can't see how we're, you know, doing our job on this one if we approve this. So for those reasons, I'm not going to be able to support this.
Okay. Commissioner Weisky?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. In this case, I see it as the opposite, as long as we leave condition 13 in there. Right now, the tenants who are living there, 2 of the 6 available, one has stated tonight that he will be working in this new establishment, so he is familiar with what is going on. It's my understanding that the tire shop owner knows, as the other tenant in both the business and the apartment, he's aware of what the nightclub is next door. The other 4 available rental spaces will be filled with the knowledge that there is a nightclub going in the same building, integral building, as it is, and there's a nightclub, excuse me, a bar next door that will be looked at, I'm sure, closely to find out if they have are creating adverse and environmental impacts to the adjacent property. Unfortunately, you guys are asking for the one thing that makes this work with your special use permit, in my opinion. You need that because you have adjacent residential opportunities in your building. It's no different than being downtown. Any of the nightclubs downtown who have apartments or condos above them or next door to them or across the street, you wouldn't believe the concerned citizens that we have heard in here over the last few years talking about the noise and what can be done about noise mitigation. Well, that's exactly, this is what it's all about. This is why it is in here. And I appreciate the fact of what you're asking for, and I understand it because you're in an industrial zoned area, but you have residential adjacency. And that's the way to look at it. If you want 13, condition 13 taken out, I'm going to have to agree with Commissioner Stapleton, and I'm going to say no. If you leave it in there, then I will be voting in favor of this, and you guys can deal with it accordingly and have long-term, not transient type renters in your building, because they're not going to be blown out of there at 4 o'clock in the morning, depending who's playing what music. So that's my comment and opinion. Thank you.
Thank you, Commissioner Weisky. Commissioner Lott, any comments? No? Commissioner Kaufman.
I agree with Commissioner Weisky. Leaving 13 in there is the only way that I would support this project. And it's a condition, again, for the commissioners have said on this and heard over and over again, but that's the only way that's the only way I can make the findings to approve.
Thank you. And I could approve this either way. Typically, these are put in to protect unsuspecting residential uses in rental units, people coming in that aren't familiar with it. But if it's the feeling of the commission to keep 13 in, I will go along with that. But I think this is a horse of a different color. We set no standards. We set no precedent. We take each case on a case-by-case basis and add conditions, delete conditions, approve or disapprove as we see fit. I can make the findings with or without condition 13. So with that, I'll wait for a motion. What is the will of the commission?
Mr. Chairman, I'll make a motion, and we need 2 motions on this project. So in LDC 13-00032, the manor, based upon compliance, and this is to locate a bar, nightclub in an existing building at 324 Kitsky Lane. Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to all the conditions.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
Commissioner Weisky, second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Any opposed?
Nay.
Let the record show the motion carries 4-1. Commissioner Kaufman.
In the case of LDC 13-00032, the manor, to allow the business operation from 11 p.m. to 6 a.m. Based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to conditions, and I can make all the findings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I second.
We have a motion and a second. All in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Nay.
Let the record show the motion carries 4-1. Good luck with your project.
Thank you.
Item number 3 on the agenda, LDC 13-00030.
Excuse me, Mr. Chairman, could you read the appeal process in case they are interested in that?
Okay. Well, they're gone now. Okay, appeal. Any action taken by the Planning Commission on a tentative map, special use permit, variance, or skyway is final unless appealed. Any person aggrieved by the decision may file an appeal. Each person or entity must make his, hers, or its own appeal. Appeals must be filed with the city clerk within 10 days of the Planning Commission hearing by submitting the appropriate form and fee. All other matters will be forwarded to City Council with the Planning Commission's recommendations. Are we good, Marilyn? Okay. Now, item 3, LDC 13-00030, Boys and Girls Club of Truckee Meadows. Will the applicant or the applicant's representative please step forward and identify yourself?
Good evening. For the record, Mike Rayleigh with Rubicon Design Group, here on behalf of the Boys and Girls Club of Truckee Meadows. The request that we have is for a special use permit to reestablish an existing non-conforming use and to establish a new community center within the MF14 zone. I think everybody is fairly familiar with the old YMCA site directly south of Reno High School on Foster Drive. The aerial view there is the existing building. What we're proposing to do is demolish the existing YMCA building and construct a new Boys and Girls Club that's approximately 12,000 square feet smaller than the existing YMCA building. And what that allows us to do is provide greater setbacks between the building and the existing homes, as well as additional parking. The other kind of key difference between the YMCA and the Boys and Girls Club is that the Boys and Girls Club caters to children. There's no adult programs. I know in the past parking was an issue with the YMCA because they had, aerobics classes and swimming and that sort of thing, and adults were attending in the evening hours, that sort of thing. That concern gets eliminated with this because obviously the kids don't drive themselves. And then for the after-school programs, the Boys and Girls Club actually operates their own shuttle service where they pick the kids up at the elementary schools and bring them back. So the traffic volumes are significantly less as well. Additionally, the building height is actually reduced over what the existing YMCA building is. Our highest point of the building is the gymnasium that you can see there on the west side, that area, which is actually still about, on average, about 5 to 6 feet lower than the existing building. And given the increase in setbacks, it's a much less impact to the residential areas to the south. We did notify, or in writing, we sent all of the adjoining neighbors a letter explaining what we were doing with the site. I only received one phone call in response to those letters, and it was from one neighbor that said, you know, how fast can you build it? The site's become really an eyesore. If you go out there today, there's a lot of graffiti on the building. It's become a kind of a maintenance issue for the city. There's signs posted, unsafe building. You know, it's kind of really become a blighted site. So I think it'll greatly improve the aesthetics of the neighborhood. One other thing, too, for those of you that have been on the commission, I know Commissioner Romeo, prior members, a while back, we actually proposed to put townhomes on this site. That was met with fierce opposition. The neighborhood wanted to see some sort of community center type thing like the YMCA. So I think this is a win-win for everybody. It's a win-win for the Boys and Girls Club because they can expand the services that they offer to the community. It gets the neighbors what was really envisioned for the site, and then the city is actually donating the site to the Boys and Girls Club for construction. So I think it's a win-win. So with that, I'm happy to answer any questions you might have.
Thank you, Mike. Vern, are you handling this for the city?
Vern Close, Senior Planner. Mr. Raley adequately addressed what they're proposing to do here. There are some sign issues, and well, they're not issues, but they're signs that need to be addressed, and also the on-street parking. But staff believes that all those issues are adequately addressed as proposed. I really have nothing further to add except for we received no calls, no emails, no correspondence whatsoever on this project, and it was reviewed by the NAB. And those comments are in your staff report. So if you have any questions for me, I'll be happy to answer them at the appropriate time. Thank you.
Thank you, Vern. This is a public hearing. Is there anyone in chambers that wishes to speak? When you're done, please fill out a comment card over at Michelle's desk and identify yourself for the record, please.
I'm Dawn Russell, and I live in the neighborhood, and so I was glad to see the site as far as possibly changing it away from the thought of doing it into a condo or a townhome. I agree that that was not such a good idea. My question is, will there be an easement in between Westfield Village and the current site? The YMCA used to have a little gate that would provide a shortcut, and there was an easement between a property, I can't remember the exact address, but it was on Westfield that you could cut through that neighborhood to pass through between the neighborhood and the Y. Will that still be open, or will they have to leave it closed off?
Okay, we'll try to get that answered for you, okay? And please remember to fill out a comment card. Mike, would you care to answer that?
I don't believe there was a recorded easement for that, but if it exists, I know that the Boys and Girls Club would have no problem maintaining that if that's the wish of the neighborhood.
Thank you, Mike. Okay, is there anyone else who wishes to speak on this item? Come on down, now's your chance. And again, please identify yourself, and when you're done, fill out a
My name is Bill West. I'm the pastor of the First Baptist Church, DBA of the Bridge, just to the east there, and we're just excited about this potentially coming to the neighborhood, and we believe it will be a huge win-win for the community, and so we're supportive of this taking place, just so you know.
Thank you.
Okay.
Last chance. Hearing and seeing none. I'll close the public comment portion, bring it back to the board. Are there any disclosures on this, by the way?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. I spoke with the applicant's representative on this project.
Commissioner, no? No? Okay. And I was totally ignored by the applicant's representative on this, on purpose, I think. It's townhomes. All right. Any questions, comments? Right to a motion?
I have a question.
Oh, Commissioner Kaufman.
For the applicant. Are they going to tear down all the existing buildings, or are they going to leave the one building that's probably about 8 or 9 years old?
Yeah, actually, the entire building, including the Link Piazza Center, comes down. I know they looked hard at seeing if they could retrofit that
Right.
building, but based on the Boys and Girls Club needs and the existing floor plan of the building, it doesn't necessarily function for their needs. There was a little bit of confusion initially about the youth center that's there now that's still operated by the city of Reno, and that's not a part of this request. So that building will stay.
Thank you.
Any other questions, comments, motion? Nope. Commissioner Stapleton.
I have a question for the applicant, probably. And just because it looks like we're going to go to a motion soon, I'll just, I'll combine this with my comments, which are that this is to me, looks like a wonderful project. It's going to be improvement to the neighborhood, and I'm able to meet the findings. I have one question about how the landscape plan doesn't currently meet the requirements, and I just wanted to ask about this to be consistent with what Commissioner Weisky said earlier about the applicant not providing the adequate landscaping
Right.
plan. So I just wanted to make sure that you guys had communicated with staff about that, and I don't know why that happened, the oversight of not having the required number of trees and tree height, but just wanted to ask about that.
The architect actually submitted the plan. There's a landscape architect working on the project that is active with the Boys and Girls Club and is donating their time. One thing I can tell you is there's going to be a strong effort made to save the existing mature trees that are on site, and those were not counted on the plan that we submitted, so that was part of that. But we are in full concurrence with all the conditions, and all those tree requirements will be met.
So your landscape architect is aware of that, and
Yes.
he's going to redo the plan?
Yes,
Okay.
and like I say,
Thank you.
they're even looking at transplanting some of the mature trees that are along Foster Drive into that back buffer area. So.
Okay, that sounds great. Thank you.
Anything further? Motion?
Mr. Chairman,
Commissioner Weisky.
in the case of LDC 13-00030, Boys and Girls Club of Truckee Meadows, based upon compliance with the applicable findings, I move to approve the special use permit subject to the conditions, and I can make all of the findings.
We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I can second the motion and make the findings.
We have a second by Commissioner Stapleton. All in favor of the motion signify by saying aye.
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 Is there any opposed? Let the record show the motion carries 5-0. Good luck with your project, and no more townhomes on that site.
What's that?
No more townhomes. Thanks, Mike. Item 4, LDC 13-00015. I have in my packet that this item has been postponed and will be renoticed. Are we done with that, or do we need a motion?
It's my understanding that it's been postponed and it will come back in February of 2013, and necessary noticing would be provided for that hearing.
Okay. Thank you, Vern. Item 8, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning Liaison Report. Commissioner Weisky, do you have something to report?
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. Tuesday night of this week, Truckee Meadows Regional Planning met for a special meeting to make recommendation to the Truckee Meadows Regional Governing Board on a new director. The new director, the recommendation for the new and upcoming director is our current director. Kimberly was one of 6 applicants. She scored the highest, but 3 recommendations were made to RPGB, and they will be meeting next week to make their final and binding decision. We do not have a meeting this month in December. We will have our next regional meeting in January.
And we did lose 2 regional planning commissioners. This was their last meeting. Vaughn Hartung from Washoe County, who has been elected to the county commission, and Jackie Peterson from the city of Sparks. So there will be a change in the regional planning commission.
Can I ask a question on that?
Certainly.
For our regional planning members? When you guys say you made 3 recommendations to the Regional Planning Governing Board on the director item, what does that mean?
That means there was 15 applications submitted. There were 6 that were selected as being qualified applications based upon previous experience and educational experience. Of those 6, the subcommittee made, they scored, we scored all 6 candidates, and the top 3 were then recommended to RPGB because that's the way state law is set up, that Regional Planning Commission makes a recommendation to the governing board for final and binding decision.
Thanks. It's an interesting process, and that's an important position, so I just wanted to ask.
Yeah, and just so you know, Dagny, Commissioner Stapleton, we have to follow an RS 239 on that. We've done this 3 times now in the last 6 years. We try to make it as painless and quick as possible to keep the transition smooth. So, all right, item 9, staff announcements. Vern?
Vern Close, Senior Planner, we'll just lump those
Lump 'em
last
all.
several items together. No, the only announcement that we have is yesterday the council certified the amendment to the South Meadows Phase 3 PUD related to that fire station site. It changed the fire station agreement, that sort of things related to that. And just as a aside, the zone change for that site will be coming to the Planning Commission in January.
Okay.
That's all I have.
That's it? Well, item 10, Commissioner's suggestion for future agenda items.
I have a comment.
Commissioner Kaufman.
I guess whoever does the calendar, like for January 2nd, to have a meeting,
The meetings are scheduled
Could
for the
be.
first Wednesday of the month.
What's that?
The meetings are scheduled for the first Wednesday of the month, unless council has that date, and then we have to do it for the first Thursday.
Well, I know, but when we have holidays
I
and
know.
so forth, we should probably take a look at moving that back a week, since, we all like to be here, but we also like to be with family and so forth, so, or some of us do.
We don't. We want to be here.
Even though you are a family.
Vern, if you're going to be here, we want to be here.
That's right. Vern Close, Senior Planner. I will pass that along to the planning manager and the director. I think it's probably a good idea to at least take a look at it when we schedule for the next year's cycle, that if we have, like New Year's Day is the day before Planning Commission, that maybe we might want to just move it to the next week. But we'll have that discussion. But at this point, this stuff gets set about a year in advance, so we'll take a look at that, and that as well as other holidays that might be conflicting, like the 4th of July.
4th of July has always been a big one before too, Vern, where it's
Yeah.
been tough to get enough people even for a quorum.
Yeah, and hot August nights for me.
This year, or
That's not a holiday.
in 2013, it's scheduled for the Tuesday before the holiday.
So I guess maybe before those dates are approved, maybe we pass up by the chairman, or, and have them take a look at it too and say, and I understand there's conflicts with the council too, but, sometimes, I'd rather have it on the 3rd instead of January 2nd, because at least that gives you an extra day to get back, or, so,
I understand. At this point, it's set, but we will take a look at that, and when we put together or we can relook at the 2013 agendas and maybe give it to you guys, and if there's a couple of conflicts that you can see within about 6 months or around Christmas time, then we can adjust those meeting dates, or at least consider that.
I would just concur with Commissioner Kaufman and suggest that, once a year, we put that on the agenda, all the future meeting dates, so that we can all look at it together. I know it did come into our email, but I know that I didn't look at it till today, even though I think I got the first one a little while ago. But I think that's a great idea. If we can do that once a year and look at those, it sounds like it's too late for January, but if we'd have had that opportunity last month and had it on the agenda, and then we can just go over the whole year all at once, I think that would be a great idea.
Marilyn Craig, Deputy City Attorney. Your meetings are set by bylaws, And then, so therefore, at least it would require a change in the bylaws, and it may also require a change in the code. So it's not something that is easily done. The reason behind it was to give the public fair notice and stability in terms of when you would be meeting. Doesn't mean it can't be changed. I just wanted you to know that.
Thank you, Marilyn. And now we are aware. Is that it? Item 11, public comment. This public comment item is to allow the public to provide general public comment and not for comment on individual action items contained on this agenda. Does anyone out there wish to speak on anything that's on their mind? You have a young lady out there, you've spent the whole meeting here and haven't said a word? No? Okay. We'll move on to item 12, adjournment.
And before we adjourn,
Yes.
could I wish everybody a Merry Christmas?
And I would like to do the same. It's been a pleasure serving this year. I hope all you and your families have great holidays and be safe, and hope we'll see you all in January. With that, we're adjourned.